In in the United States, we often talk about the separation between church and state, but I'm going to talk about a different separation I think a lot of people have, and it's a separation between church and estate. You know, God is just fine and good so long as God stays within the bounds of these walls and doesn't interfere with my finances or my home life or anything else like that. And that is exactly the opposite of the way in which, well, it's not the opposite of which the way in which many people have thought about God, because there are lots of people across time. That's in fact what Zephaniah is talking about. But the reality is that for both in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, there is this understanding that God is the one who provides all that we have, everything that we need, that God is the one who provides all these things. And, as Martin Luther would say when he's talking about what is the first commandment, we're to fear, love, and trust God above all things. That part of that means realizing all that God has given us. And I do think so many times the way we think about God shapes other things as well. I love our psalm for the day, um, especially the first line, and I remember it in a slightly different version. Um, "O Lord, you have been our dwelling place for all generations." But it does, it taps into a common theme within the Psalms of God. You are that place of security. You are that stronghold. You are that place where we can go back to again and again and again. You are that ground that we're safe with. As Psalm 46, where Luther's inspiration for Mighty Fortress comes from. Oh God, you are our stronghold, or you are our strength, our shield, our bulwark. You are the one who keeps us safe, holds us fast. That everything that we have resides in you. We have that place that's there within our memory, that's there within our scriptures, that calls us back again and again to God is the one who provides. God is the one who is our security, our resting place, our stronghold, our steadfast place. And then we spend the rest of our week with this kind of being our security, our standing place, or at least the way I think, and I'm guilty of this as well, where we begin to think that, oh, but we need to make our own security. We need to make our own way of doing this. And, I'm not, I know me, don't hear anything I'm about to say today advocating foolish decisions. I'm not saying take all the gifts you have and go invest them in lottery tickets, or go and put it in the casino and see if the odds are truly in your favor today. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, I begin to think, you know what, that God's not really going to provide, that I really need to provide for myself. That God's not really going to give me the daily bread that I need to go out and make sure I get my own daily bread. And that God's not really that active and involved. Yet everything within the scriptures that I hold here speaks exactly the opposite. One of the things as I was thinking about this parable this week, where you have the parable of the talents, that I don't think most people realize how much talent really is. We think of talent as a coin, not a coin. A talent is roughly 75 pounds of either silver or gold. It would take you 15 years of working to earn one. So this is a phenomenal sum that's being talked about within the reference of this parable. Just kind of for reference, and I only know this where my personal study is right now. When the people of Israel are putting together the tabernacle, They used 33 talents. So the investment of the entire community of over 600,000 men is 33 talents. That's about 100,000. So when we're talking about one person being given 5, or one person being given 2, one person being given 1, it's not a small, trivial amount. This is something that the master is saying to these slaves, I see something in you that I can take that which is incredibly rich and precious, and I can get it and I can put it in your hand. And I can go away for a long period of time knowing that it will be trust and faith with you. And so that's what the master does. The master gives to these slaves 5 talents. So you can do the math, but it's over 400 pounds of precious metal. 2, about 150. 75. And so we're not looking at a person who's just, I love this image, but it's not a person looking at this one precious coin or something like that. It's much, much different. I've been given a fortune. I've been given more than I can spend in the time when my master is going to be gone. And I think so often in this parable, one of the unspoken things is we never hear what the first and the second servant say about the master. We only hear what the third servant says about the master. And I think sometimes we privilege that servant's view of the master as the only right one. But this is the one that's actually the counterpoint to what the other two do. So the first servant receives the 5 talents and it says, well, my master has seen something in me. Seen some gift in me, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to do to the best of my ability what I can with this which the master has given me. He does. And it comes back. And it's a great return. And the second servant doesn't look at, well, he got 5. He must be a whole lot more loved by the master than me. No, he looks at, but this is what the master has given me. This is what I have. What can I do with this? And he goes and he uses it to the best of his ability and he comes back. And it comes back more. And so when the master returns, both the first and the second are greeted with joy. Well done. Well done, good and trustworthy servant. Well done, good and trustworthy slave. Come, enter into the joy of your master. Come, enter into this time of celebration. Come, sit at the table of honor where there's going to be rich food and rich drink. Come, enjoy this time of feasting and rejoicing because you saw in yourself what I saw. And maybe, just maybe, it's as much about their view of the master as it is about what they do. Because it is that last servant. And that's where the time gets spent. It's the servant who takes the talent and goes and buries it, hides it away, and then when the master returns, goes and unearths it. And, when you listen to it, it's the call of this servant. Come back and say to the master, how many of you are going to go in tomorrow morning? Now, Grant, I know it's Thanksgiving week and it's a short week, but how many of you are going to go in tomorrow and say to your boss, you know what? I know that you are a harsh man or a harsh woman, that you are a pain to work for, and you can almost see where that conversation would go after that. I don't think there are too many bosses that aren't going to say, get out of here. Pack up your desk, hit the road, and don't look back. But that's exactly what happens in the parable, too. Again, I think we sometimes interpose so much onto this, but, the master's ready to celebrate with these first 2 slaves who have come and they've seen their master as a good and a gracious master. They've taken that which the master has given them, and they believe that the master has given it to them to use, and they believe that their master sees something in them. But I think sometimes our own insecurity gets pushed onto the master as well. I don't trust myself, so I sure don't trust him. And I think sometimes by our own choosing, we end up in that place outside where we want to be. We end up in that place, uh, we end up in the alleyway when we want to be in on the party. And I think part of it comes back to this idea that we want to separate that which we have. We want to separate all that we do. I think sometimes we want church just to be that one piece of our life where we kind of come in and we get told these stories again, but we want the rest of our life to kind of be different. And I think sometimes that's where we end up in that dark alleyway, where we end up kind of putting everything on our own shoulders, and we end up beginning to believe that, really, God, as Zephaniah says, God's not going to act for good or for evil. God's just not going to act. And I think that sometimes blinds us to the ways in which God really is at work. To the ways in which God does provide for us, the ways in which, whether it is through work or through family or through the house that we live in or the relationships that we have, that God gives us that which we need for this day and the next day. Next. God truly does give us our daily bread. That's often the things that God places in our hands. We're looking at it and we may not realize that what's been placed in our hands is not something small, but it's something mighty. That it's something that can do something great. That God places within us God's greatest treasure. That God gives us not only just that thing that we need, but sometimes frequently much more we do have often in abundance. And as we come together on this week of Thanksgiving, as we prepare to gather around tables, most of us, if you're like me, you're prepared to eat a little bit too much. God does provide. God has given us an incredible amount of work. And part of that is ultimately, what is it for? At least for me, it's so that we can be that servant at the end who comes and says, God, this is the life that you gave me. These are the resources you gave me. Now it's time for me to give it back. And I trust that whatever it is, that the answer that I will hear at that point is, well done, good and trustworthy slave. Come, enter into the joy. Now, I'd be lying if I didn't say that there weren't times where I do feel like that. And I have to check my own mind, check my own wanting to put things on my own shoulders. I'm really good. My own wanting to say, well, but let me just hold on to that which I have, not let it go. There are lots of times where I want to, again, even as a person who lives and talks about these stories all the time, who wants to make that separation between church and my own estate, of saying, you know what, but I need to deal with this over here and I need to deal with this over here. But I think what God wants us to be able to see is that this is all of it. Okay? The Lord has made. It is a gift. That it is something that God has placed in our hands, that God has entrusted to us, and God says, good and trustworthy servant, here is the treasure that I give you. Go and invest it in the midst of this world that I love so much. And come, bring back whatever you do, whatever it is you find out. Maybe, just maybe, God sees something in us that we don't always see. maybe, just maybe, that which has been placed in our hands is not, you know, just that little bit of stuff that, oh, here's this small little bit of precious stuff, a little bit of silver, a little bit of gold, a little bit of bronze atop it, or these little sheets of paper with, "In God we trust," printed on. Maybe God really has placed the treasures of heaven in our hands to go and be used, to go and be invested in this world that God loves. Maybe, just maybe, God isn't that harsh and unforgiving God that I think so many people believe. But maybe that God is the one who is waiting expectantly for us to come home and share the joy with that which we have received in the lives